you didn't look like me, I used to hate you. My name's Jodie Stovall, and I was born in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Grew up as a son of a preacher, and when I was a kid, my dad was one of the few preachers in Arkansas that actually brought black kids to church. Some of the deacons in the church actually took my dad out and beat the hell out of him. Evidently, God wasn't for everybody. I never heard anybody call them black people. They were always called niggers, black AP dogs, and a bunch of other stuff. My uncles didn't think that black people had a soul. You could hear the black person on the road and you don't stop. You didn't do anything but kill an animal. And so I began early on to hate people of a different race. It didn't just stop at black people. It went to Jews, it went to Asians, it pretty much went to everything that didn't look like me. As I grew up, it got worse. One of my friends got shot for flying a rebel flag off the bed of his truck, and he got killed. So as I grew up, I tried to get into a career that would allow me to interact with people. I've always been good at talking to people. I started working, and my career, my life, everything just seemed to not really go anywhere. And so then I joined the Navy. While I was there, I got transferred to Groton, Connecticut. While I was stationed there, I got involved in punk music. I started listening to the hardcore punk. I was the guy that wore the wife beater and the white shoelaces and red shoelaces in my Doc Martens. Then I got transferred to San Diego, California, and that's where I fell in love with Hitler. One of the most brilliant, sadistic men that's ever lived. He designed the Volkswagen Bug for the common people, and the common people being white, Aryan, hardworking folks. And that did not describe any of the inferior races in my mind. I'd finally found a home. Not only a bunch of guys that thought like I did, but they looked like I did. They worked like I did. And they were as tough as I was. It seemed like I did nothing but work out and get in fights. I never had to hit anybody more than 1 or 2 times before they were either knocked out cold or dead. I had a Spanish guy, Mexican, that tried to choke me out one time, and I broke his eye sockets and his nose. And I learned that the skinheads were my survival. Then I actually met another guy. He's a friend of mine that was also a skinhead that got me into a little more elite of a group. And these guys actually took it a lot farther. My Waffen SS group, which was Hitler's elite guard, we actually had doctors, lawyers, that nobody knew they were racist, that hated everything that I hated. And I realized then and there that I'd finally graduated from the simple hate to a set of beliefs that was not only intelligent but pure as my blood. And the easiest way to get back at the minorities that I knew of and still make a great living was to start selling drugs. I realized that I could sell meth and coke and ecstasy and a little bit of weed, but that was just for fun because even white boys smoked that. And then I had friends that got involved in it. And one of my friends, a little redheaded girl, a redheaded version of Marilyn Monroe in my eyes at that time, I watched her OD on the drugs that I'd taught her how to use. But by that point, I'd actually started using myself because it's hard to sell and not use. And I guess that was the turning point in my life. When you see a friend, not only somebody you like, but somebody you care about, ODing and shaking on the floor, about to die, and it was my fault. But then I didn't realize it at that point, but I started to hate who I had become. At that point in my life, I had had to go into rehab for my drug addiction. And the very first day in rehab, I was sat by a black guy sitting right on my right hand side. This guy, his name was James. He and I sat down together in that room and shared, and I found a commonality, a common ground that actually pulled us together. For the first time in my entire life, I had something in common with somebody else that did not look like me, that was a different race, and that everything that I ever hated, and I was on the exact same level. And as we began to share our stories, the commonalities were that we were both addicted to drugs. I was addicted to violence at that point, and I didn't have anything left because I was going to wind up dead or in prison for the rest of my life. The farther into rehab we got, the better friends we got to be, and that's where I changed my mind about minorities. Even though I had gotten rid of the drugs at that point in my life, I'd not really gotten rid of the mindset. I had to learn to reprogram myself. I had to learn to relax, and I actually went out of my way to speak to people that I would have left bloody in an alley at one point in my life. I went out of my way to be nice to them. And I figure if I fix my actions, I can fix my mindset. And actually that does work over time. And then I began to get friends that were of different races and of different colors. That they actually opened my eyes that they were people too. That they had struggles just like I did. They had jobs, they had families. It was probably the most difficult thing for me to actually talk to somebody on a personal level. I'd done nothing but hate these people. To actually open up who I was, figure I'd get back to my roots as opposed to staying mixed up with the crowd that I was with. So I left California, and I didn't really realize how quickly a reputation travels, but nobody would have anything to do with me. All I had was my family. I met my wife, her name is Liz. So the very first night that we talked, I told her absolutely everything, the whole spiel. And she is the most understanding person I'd ever met. She was like, wow, it's amazing that God let you live through all this. I think it's amazing that you could come back from that. And she accepted me for who I was. 10 years later, after all that, I have 3 beautiful kids, Quinlan, Piper, and Zoe. They all are the driving force in my life. And hopefully they don't have to see the ugliness in the world, they get to see the beauty. I wouldn't change anything about my past because that's what helped me become more understanding. I don't necessarily know where life's going to take me right now, but it's an adventure and it always has been. That's my life.